But our next topic is deals with models of neuron. So before starting actual modeling, in today's lecture, we will just have a overlook of nervous system. What the nervous system is, what is its anatomy, and how it is, what is neuron. So in today's lecture, we'll see anatomy and physiology of nervous system up to the neuron. So the smallest part that we are going to study today is a neuron, and how signal travels across this nervous system. So we call it as action potential. So what is that process of action potential? So we'll revise these things, or it may be new for some of you. So I'll try to simplify it. Before starting the actual anatomy and physiology or introduction of this nervous system, let us understand how a feedback system works for the human body. It is similar to a feedback system that we learn in engineering, like a closed loop feedback. How a closed loop feedback work? There is a sensor. That sensor senses, okay, and it gives feedback to your controller, and the controller takes an action, or we call it as intelligent action, and then it controls the process. For example, uh, a simple example, say addition of two numbers. How this addition of two numbers happens? When I'll ask you to add 2 plus 2, how it happens? Okay, so in this case, sensors will be your ears. You will listen, or ears will play a role of the sensor. So that signal, you will listen that I'm asking you to add two numbers, that is 2 plus 2, right? So that after hearing it, you transmit that signal to your brain. Brain is nothing but an intelligent controller here, and then brain calculates that 2 plus 2 is equals to 4, and then they will transmit that signal to your mouth and will ask you to say, or that will they will ask you to write by your hand, whatever is the means. So that is that. Another part is nothing but a motor, or we call it as actuator in engineering. So here we call a motor. A similar kind of a system is there. Sensors are there. Sensors are like skin touch. That is a kind of a sensors. That is a kind of a senses that plays. Another is say hearing. Hearing is a kind of a sensor. Actuator is, say, you are withdrawing your hand if you will get some kind of a touch with hot thing. So in that case, you withdraw your hand immediately. So muscles or that moment plays an role of actuator or the motors. Okay, so now this is parallel, this is analogous, this is similar to the engineering concept. Try to find out analogy and then try to understand, then it will be easier for you to remember also. So we will start the nervous system. Basically, the nervous system has two major parts. One is a central nervous system and another is a peripheral nervous system. What do you mean by central nervous system? And the whole nervous system is divided into two parts. At this, you can understand only one thing, that the complete nervous system, we are dividing the complete nervous system into two parts based on its functions. Like one major part is, say, for smaller reflexes, for example touching a hot plate or sneezing or some kind of a smaller responses, uh, some kind of a smaller things, smaller closed loop controls, you can see. So in that case, the signal is not directly going to the brain. It's only coming to the spinal cord, and the action is taken via spinal cord only. So that is how a peripheral nervous system works. We call it as a peripheral nervous system or another nervous system. And the central nervous system is where brain and the spinal cord, the main controller, which takes part in this kind of a thing, So that consists of that is a part of the central nervous system. So central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord, whereas the peripheral nervous system consists of your spinal nerves, cranial nerves. Again, it has two parts like somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. um, Again, the nerves are nothing but they are just like a wire. In electronics we are saying that, or in our feedback control systems, how the sensors carries the signal to a controller. So via some connections, so these are nothing but the connections. Neurons are nothing but the connections. So again, that connections has different names. If the connection is coming from sensors to nervous system or brain or spinal cord, then it is called as afferent, and if it is going away, then it is called as a efferent or motor nerve. So this kind of a names are given. So let us see one by one. This is the nervous system organization. Central nervous system, two parts, brain and the spinal cord. This is the brain and this is the spinal cord. Then peripheral nervous system, it consists of different pairs of the nerves like spinal nerves, cranial nerves. Um, all the neurons which are outside of the central nervous system are called as a part of the peripheral nervous system. Then brain, it has three major areas: cerebrum, cerebellum, and brainstem. Okay, at this point, you may not be able to recollect these names. Okay, you may find these names difficult, but when you have that passion, or when you want to understand something, how it works, then in that case, automatically, or once your interest is generated, you will be able to recollect and remember these names. Okay, though they are something new names to much biological terms, but when an interest will be generated, it will be easier for you to understand these names. So at this point, I just want to confirm whether all you guys are in line with me. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this brain, we will say that the brain has three major areas: cerebrum, cerebellum, and the brainstem. This brainstem consists of midbrain, pons, and medulla. So cerebrum, you can see here. This upper or this part is called as a cerebrum. Now this lower part is called as a cerebellum, and this third part is called as a brainstem. And followed by the brainstem, there is a spinal cord. Okay, so majorly you can consider that this upper part we call it as a cerebrum. Then this backside lower part we call it as a cerebellum, and this middle inner part we call it as a brainstem. Three subparts, three major parts. Then cerebrum, it is composed of telecephalon. So we call it as a cerebral cortex. Another name used is a cerebral cortex, and dicephalon. And cerebral cortex is, it's nothing but it's a gray matter because nerve fibers lack white myelin coating. So cerebral cortex is a gray matter. Whenever we will study brain, so you will come across two matters: gray matter and the white matter. Some part is made up of a gray matter, some part is made up of a white matter. So the cerebral cortex is made up of the gray matter. This is because the nerve fibers lack white myelin coating. I'll come back to the, when we will study the nerve, you will understand. The nerve is the smallest unit. It's nothing but a connection or the fiber. And myelin coating, myelin is nothing but, say, it's an outer coating of the nerve. Just like a wire. If you have a wire, say inside conductor of the wire is a nerve, and outside insulator is nothing but a myelin. Just like insulator is for a wire, conducting wire, just like that for nerve fiber there is a myelin or outside covering, coating. So here you can see here all the parts. This is the midbrain, pons, this is the cerebellum, and this part is cerebrum. Again, it has certain parts. So come to the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex has four major lobes: parietal lobe, frontal lobe, temporal, and occipital. So you can see here, this is the frontal lobe, this is the parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and the temporal lobe. These are the four parts of the cerebral cortex. These parts, just simple parts, lobes. So we call it as a, in biology, the word which is used for part is a lobe. Why this word is because it's a kind of, the brain is made up of folds, multiple folds. So when uh, you will see this internal structure, so you can see or you can diagnose, like this is a one part, this is another part, where all these folds are coming together, or they have some consistency where there is a line in between these two. These are the parts. So what are the functions of the cerebral cortex? Functions like intellectual processes like thought or intelligence, processes sensory information and integrates with the past experience to produce appropriate motor response. Like whatever intelligence things happen, intellectual processes like thinking or some kind of intelligence like calculation and all. So all this part is taken care by the cerebral cortex, or these are the functions of the cerebral cortex.
Ma'am, please explain those lobes now and again.
Okay. These are the four major lobes. Lobes nothing but say parts of the cerebral cortex. Frontal, frontal lobe, because why it is called as a frontal? Because it comes when its situation is to the front side of the face, or our front side. So that's why it is called as a frontal. Okay. And temporal, it's a middle, and parietal lobe, and backest one is the occipital lobe. So why these called as lobes? These are the parts, or the cerebral cortex is divided into these four major parts. So how they are divided is, when you will see, there are folds. There are four. The brain is made up of a multiple folds, and when you will see its anatomy, so this folds, you can see a distinct separation of this fold. Say a frontal lobe, you can see here the complete lobe, you can't see any kind of a separation here, but in between this frontal and the parietal there is a line. In between this frontal and the temporal there is a separation line. So likewise you can see that these parts are separated: parietal lobe, frontal lobe, temporal, and occipital. And not only separated physically, but you can see there are distinct functions of each lobe. These are the functions of cerebral cortex, like thinking and intelligence. I have not gone in much more depth at this point, because anyways in anatomy and physiology you are going to study in much depth, in more depth. Here I want to take you to the neuron and how it works and what is action potential and all, because we want to model the neuron. So again, another part of the cerebrum was diencephalon. So it has two major parts like thalamus and the hypothalamus. Functions are: thalamus relays stimuli received from all sensory neurons to cortex for interpretation, and it relays signals from the cerebral cortex to the proper area for further processing. And what functions of the hypothalamus are: it monitors many parameters like temperature, blood glucose level, and various hormones level. It helps to maintain homeostasis. Homeostasis is nothing but uh, body temperature. Our body temperature is maintained, like when we call it as another word used for this is thermoregulation. So how this thermoregulation happens, uh, I'll explain you briefly. Like when your body temperature goes on increasing, so sweating happens. uh, body generates sweats, and it helps to cool the body temperature. If your body temperature is dropping out of the certain limit, so shivering happens, and because of the shivering, some kind of a fats are deposited or they are coming out of the skin, and it acts like a thermal I mean, it stops the thermal out or thermal irradiation from the body, so that the body temperature is maintained. So working of this homeostasis happens, like the function of the homeostasis is done by the hypothalamus. Then signals the pituitary. Pituitary is a kind of a gland, so it gives signal to this gland while releasing some biochemical factors. It signals the lower neural centers like spinal cord and pons or the midbrain. So these are the functions of the hypothalamus. So this is the structure. This is the anatomy you can see here.
Ma'am, this thalamus and hypothalamus, are they chemicals present in our brain which give the signal?
No, that are not a chemical. That all these are made up of tissue, kind of a tissue. These are the centers. It's a part of the brain, you can say. The whole brain is made up of different parts, and each part takes or each part controls the complete work, or what we say, whatever intelligence or whatever happens with the human body. So each thing, it's taken care by different parts, say speech or hearing, or say now in this case the function of the hypothalamus is control of the temperature, blood glucose level, and various hormones level, like this. So whatever the functions that are taken, like brain is doing, so all that functions are taken care by different parts. So hypothalamus is one of that part, thalamus is another part.
Ma'am, means how do they?
While studying the brain or the central nervous system, this is what you are going to study. So what are these different parts, and which part is doing what, and how its anatomy is.
Ma'am, means how do they control the blood glucose levels by sending chemicals to each other parts or?
Okay, so see, to control the blood glucose level, there are sensors which sense that this is what is the blood glucose level is. If it is increasing, we need to. There is another kind of gland which simulate the insulin. Okay, insulin is nothing but which consumes the blood glucose, which helps to maintain the blood glucose level. So if blood glucose level is increasing, this part or hypothalamus generates a kind of a biochemical, and that biochemical goes to that gland, and which gives a signal that now you have to increase the insulin production. So this is how it happens.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So this is the picture, again with different colors and all. It is located behind the brainstem. It helps monitor and regulate movement. It integrates postural adjustments and maintenance of equilibrium or perception of speed and other reflexes related to fine tuning of the movement. So basically the cerebellum part takes care of the movement, monitor, and it regulates the movement. So this is the brainstem. It's composed of midbrain, pons, and medulla. It maintains vegetative functioning like respiratory control or the cardiovascular centers. It also helps to maintain the reflexes, small reflexes. Come to the spinal cord. It contains both gray and white matter. Gray matter is H shape of core of cords. So this is section of the spinal cord. You can see white matter and the gray matter. Gray matter is of H shape. So All this is nothing but it's a region of brain and the spinal cord made up of primarily of cell bodies and dendrites of. So this whole nervous system is made up of the nerve cells. Okay, so when you will say gray matter, so it is primarily made up of cell bodies and dendrites of the nerve cells. And so next thing we will see is what do you mean by nerve and how its structure is. Interneurons in the spinal cord, so small nerves which do not leave the spinal cord, they are called as interneurons. These are nothing but these are the terminal portions of the axon. Gray matter, inside the gray matter there are terminal portions of the axons also. So we'll see what you mean by axon. Axon is nothing but it's a part of the neuron. So we'll see. And white matter contains tract or pathways made up of bundles. Okay,
And that
after
axon is
we will come back.
uh,
No, listen. We'll first see the nerve and then we'll come back to gray matter and white matter. You will not understand this before looking at the nerves. Okay. Okay. So here is a nerve fiber. You can see here it's a cell body. It's a complete nerve. Okay, here is a cell body. And this conduction kind of a thing is called as a axon. And this upper part is called as a cell body. Okay, again I'll come to this. Okay, you can see here this is the cell body. This middle part is called as an axon, and these are the dendrites, the terminal branches, the terminal where it ends, it's called as a dendrites. Okay, so how this is the anatomical thing. So when you are looking at the gray matter and the white matter, understand this anatomy, then we'll come back and we'll see in depth. In gray matter only cell bodies and dendrites are there, only first cell bodies and the final dendrites. Okay, and terminal portions of the axon, where in white matter it contains tract or pathways made up of bundles of myelinated nerves. Myelinated means insulated kind of a nerves. So when you will say white matter, it is made up of bundles of nerves or axons in middle part. It carries ascending and descending signals, both from sensors to the brain and from brain to the sensors, both. So this is what is called as a white matter. There are so many, different kind of words, biological words or the terms which are used. Descending nerve tracts, ascending nerve tracts, or efferent, afferent. These are the different words which are used. Meaning is same. In a closed loop system, you want to carry out the signal from sensors to the controller, and you want to carry the control action which controller wants to the actuator. So this is what is the work done, ascending and the descending, that's it. So now see how this function, how it happens when you move your hand, how it happens. So your hand is made up of, it has a bone which is a solid structure and muscles. Okay, so from brain the signal comes to these muscles via neurons. You can see these yellow neurons. So the signal comes from the brain. You can see the cross section of the spinal cord. So from the spinal cord, the signal is coming via this nerve, and the signal is given to this muscle. You can see this is the muscle. The open or the muscle fiber is open for understanding purpose. So these motor nerves are in contact with this muscle fiber. Okay, this junction is called as a synapse. This junction is called as a synapse, where the nerve fiber is in contact with the muscle fiber. The nerve fiber carries the electrical signal. How this electrical signal is transmitted or how this electrical signal travels, the physiology behind that is called as action potential. How it carries the signal. So the physiology of that is called as a action potential. It carries the electrical signal from brain or spinal cord to the muscle. Now what happens at this synapse? This electrical synapse, there is a network of the dendrites, and at the tip of the dendrites, because of this electrical signal, a biochemical substance is simulated, or a biochemical substance is generated, and that interacts with the muscle. And what happens at this muscle is, as the muscle gets the signal, it again contracts or relaxes as per the signal it's getting. Okay, so again, when we will model the muscle, in that case we will see how muscle contracts or relaxes looking at its anatomy. Okay, so at this point, just understand, or we want to model this nerve. So picture of this nerve, it's clear how it works. Shall we go in depth? Is this clear at this point, how it carries the signal and how it happens?
Can you repeat, ma'am?
Okay.
It takes the signal, and that signal acts the front part. Then in that
Yes. So at the front part, from say from spinal cord, the signal is coming. So that signal travels across the neuron, and the signal reaches at the end part. End part is nothing but it is made up of the dendrites. It has a network. A big say a network is a big neuron is divided into smaller branches, again smaller. So likewise, at the tip of the dendrites, at the tip of this network, one biochemical substance is simulated, and that biochemical substance gives signal to the muscle. Now you have to contract or you have to relax. Okay, so this is how functioning of the neuron with muscles happens. Let us go ahead. So there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves and there are 12 pairs of cranial nerves. So each spinal nerve is a mixed nerve containing somatic afferent, visceral afferent, somatic efferent, and the visceral efferent. These are nothing but the nerves which are carrying signal away from the nervous system or towards the nervous system, afferent or efferent. So somatic afferent, it carries sensation from periphery to spinal cord, and it includes exteroreceptive, or that is a pain, temperature, or touch, like proprioceptive, small things, like small things. It takes care of the small things like temperature, pain, or temperature, or touch. Then somatic efferent, these are efferent are nothing but a motor. So it communicates from spinal cord to the skeletal muscles. In case you touch some hot plate, what happens is somatic afferent neurons work, and they give or they carry signal to the spinal cord. The spinal cord immediately give back a reflex to the somatic afferent, that is a motor nerve, and which gives a signal to the skeletal muscles to move hand away. So this is this motor unit. Motor unit, it is also made up of the neuron. We have already seen. In case the signal is carried out from nervous system to the muscle, it is called as a motor unit, or the nerve The nerve is called as a motor nerve. So come back to the neuron. Two basic types, motor and the sensory. Motor means which is giving actuator signal or the motor signal, action signal. And the sensory is nothing but which senses and which get back signal to the central nervous system, or the sensory information to the central nervous system. So that's why based on their function, they are divided into two types. And it has three main parts, that is axon, dendrites, or cell, and a third part is a soma or cell bodies. So you can see this is the cell body, these are the dendrites end part, and the middle part is the axons. So neuron has three basic parts: axon, dendrites, and the cell bodies. Sensory nerves we have seen, which senses, and the motor nerves which gives action. Okay. Let us see axon. It carries impulses away from the cell body. Myelin is nothing but it's a kind of insulation for this neuron or for this axon. It's nothing but it's an outer cover or layers. So it appears as multiple lipid protein layers and are actually a continuous cell, and it increases the speed of the action potential conduction. So nodes of Ranvier, it's nothing but it's a gap between the Schwann cells. Schwann cells are nothing but these are the myelin sheath. So it is made up of this cells. So the gap between this is called as a nodes of the Ranvier. So impulses jumps from node to node, and this is how its conduction happens. So we'll see. This is the cross section. This is the cross section of the neuron. You can see here how the signal travels. Inside potential is negative and outside potential is positive. In case the signal is traveling, this inside potential becomes positive and outside potential becomes negative. Okay. I have one animation. So by looking at that animation, the picture will be more clear, and we'll see at that point itself like how it happens. So before going to the animation, only one concept. It's a resting membrane potential. It's nothing but when signal is not traveling across that axon, when signal is not traveling, what is the membrane potential? Or it is nothing but it's a difference in charge between inside and outside of the cell. What is the potential difference between inside of the cell and the outside of the cell? So that potential is called as a resting membrane potential. So what is the scenario at that point? How this happens? How this polarity changes? How this potential difference changes? Suddenly inside it's negative and outside is positive. Suddenly how it happens that inside becomes positive and the outside becomes negative? So this happens because of some ion exchange, and that ions which are involved in this case is nothing but in simple neuron it is sodium, potassium, and chlorine, or some in case of if it is cardiovascular, then sodium, potassium, chlorine, and the calcium. So it's variable. So instead of sodium and potassium, these two ions are fixed, whereas anions changes. So instead of using that chlorine words, here only anion is used. Okay, so how it happens is sodium is greater concentration outside, and potassium is potassium in greater concentration inside. Sodium has greater concentration outside and the potassium has greater concentration inside. So anion in greater concentration inside. Anion also has a greater concentration inside. So membrane permeability, again with this condition, the membrane or the cell membrane is more permeable. Permeability is greater for potassium than the sodium. More permeable to the potassium. See, potassium is inside and its concentration is more, and again it has more permeability or than the sodium. So this is how it maintains the negative potential inside of the cell. Okay, and when it how it comes back to its original one, how it pumps to the positive one and how it comes back to the original one. So this whole process, the whole thing is called as an action potential. So let us see this thing with one animation. I'll just stop sharing this.
Ma'am, all those things which you said, potassium and sodium, all those are stored in front end of neuron, no? Or also is it is stored in axon and dendrite.
All parts, axon, and basically this action potential, the concept we are saying, the signal travel, it happens across the axon. But this layers are I mean let me start it. Is my screen visible? Can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. Shall I restart it? Okay. So this woman is moving her foot. Her brain sends a message to certain muscles of her foot. So they contract and the foot moves. So what is this message and how it travels quickly? So it's nothing but action potential. Is this something missing?
Ma'am,
Resting potential. Resting,
oh,
you can see. This is the
ma'am, when we
cell layer. This is the cell layer, and
ma'am, when we
you can see this is the interior part or inside of the cell, and this is the outside of the cell. So at resting potential or the resting state, inside potential is negative and outside potential is positive. There are channels, potassium channel and a sodium channel. Channels are nothing but these are the protein gates, which allows selective travel or which acts as a gate. We call it as just like it does the work of a diode kind of thing. Yes, tell me what should be done.
ma'am, leg, when we move the leg, then the signal is passed by brain to that leg or from leg to the brain that this part of the body has been moved.
I didn't get you. What do you want to ask?
When we when a leg mean
The signal is
Signal was passed from that leg towards the brain or from
both,
brain towards that leg.
both,
In both.
both way. That is how it works. How you should how you understand that. Say for example, if you want to grab something, grab some object. So how do you understand that? What should be the level of the grabbing? Like for soft, how it is variable for soft object and the hard objects. So it's a complete closed loop system. Sensory neurons or the sensors are working, and the sensory neurons are carrying that sensor signal towards the brain, and the brain is giving you further action that now you have hold up to this point and you have to hold more or less or leave it or continue. So it's a continuous process, continuous closed loop system.
Ma'am, ma'am, it
Yes.
goes through the spinal cord now.
Yes. So we have to grab the gate of a channel which you want to open or close and move it to the correct position. So which gate should be closed? Tell me. Yes, what should be action?
Ma'am, repeat the question.
Okay. So this action potential happens like the signal is traveling, right? So the first part is the depolarization. While the signal is traveling, the first part is a depolarization. Resting potential, it's nothing but when signal is not traveling. So when it start traveling, the first part is a depolarization. So what happens in the depolarization?
Ma'am, in depolarization, the potassium ion, which is inside the cell, it goes out, and the Na plus concentration, it goes inside the cell, and um, the number of cations decreases outside.
Okay. So this is what it is asking, how it happens. Occurs when interior becomes positive and the exterior is negative. Previously at the resting state, interior is negative. So we have to bring it to the positive, or it becomes positive in case of the depolarization. So what it should be?
Ma'am, that NAK pump.
So your depolarizing, yes.
That sodium potassium pump.
This should be
Uh,
open, this should be closed. Okay. This will come in, correct? Then this will be positive. Then this depolarization happens. And repolarization is nothing but when it is coming to the resting state potential again. Inside cell will become more negative. So in this case, what can be done? Which gate should be closed or which gate should be open? How this repolarization will happen?
Ma'am, repolarization occurs by a sodium potassium pump, as it allows uh, 2K, uh, 2K plus inside and 3Na plus outside.
Okay.
Ma'am, is it correct?
Yes. Negative, positive. And in return of the 3 sodium, it gives only 2 potassium. And it's maintained. So this is the structure of your neuron. See, this is how it happens. Sorry. I wanted to show you the last one. Yeah. It's not running properly. It also shows the conduction across the axon, how it conducts.